Sheffield, the Steel City. At one stage in human history, 90% of all the world's knives were manufactured in Sheffield, made in the heart of a crucible. But today, we're visiting a different kind of crucible, but one that is equally as important when it comes to the city's culture and identity. Welcome to the Crucible!
The story of the Crucible begins in the late 1960s with Welsh actor and director Colin George. George was the artistic director of the nearby Sheffield Playhouse on Townhead Street, home to the Sheffield Repertory Theatre Company, which can be traced back to 1919. The company applied for a grant from Sheffield City Council to support the work at the Playhouse. And when they were asked to a meeting in spring 1966, they thought they were going to be told the outcome of the grant application. As George later wrote, it was a bolt from the blue to find out that the council wanted to build a new theatre like other cities were doing at that time. Its location was agreed, an island site on Norfolk Street, close to the site of the former Theatre Royal Sheffield, which stood from 1773 to 1935. Original theatre plans had been drawn up for a new thrust-forward style which could be adapted to proscenium performances. The plans were changed in 1967 when Colin George met with Sir Tyrone Guthrie, the inspiration behind the revival of modern thrust stages, including Chichester Festival Theatre. After spending 10 days in America observing Guthrie's inspired work, the original proscenium adaptation was dropped for a full thrust stage. Construction began in 1969 with designer Tanya Moisevich and financial support from Sheffield City Council, the Arts Council and public donations. Proceeds from the sale of the Sheffield Playhouse also contributed to the building cost of the new theatre. The Crucible opened on the 9th of November 1971 with an evening of entertainment which included the Anton Chekhov play Swan Song, which starred Ian McKellen and Edward Petherbridge.
Before the theatre opened, a local newspaper, The Star, ran a competition asking for the public of Sheffield to name their new theatre. And for a while it was going to be called the Adelphi, named after the famous hotel which stood on this site prior to its demolition. The Crucible name was chosen as reference to Sheffield's industrial heritage, as well as the crucible steel that was developed in the city. You'll still be able to find the Adelphi in the Crucible today, as it's the name of the room overhanging the main entrance.
The Adelphi room is used for rehearsals and can be hired out for meetings and hospitality. The Crucible temporarily closed from 2007 to 2009 to undergo a major £15 million refurbishment, both backstage and the front of house. The theatre reopened in 2010 by the then Earl of Wessex, Prince Edward, and with a production of Henrik Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, starring Sir Anthony Sher. Part of the refurbishment resulted in a new box office area and reconfiguration of the main entrance. The Crucible Kitchen is open Monday to Saturday from 10 a.m. until the beginning of the evening show. Providing teas and coffees, as well as lunches, sweet treats and savoury snacks, it's a great place to visit and soak up the Crucible atmosphere. A lift was installed at the theatre's inception to allow wheelchair access into the theatre, which was ahead of its time in the 1970s. There's also an accessible changing places toilet. The Crucible provides accessible performances. Captioned, signed and audio-described performances are available for most productions, and as an ongoing process of development, Sheffield Theatres are looking at ways for further accessibility in the future to provide an enjoyable and comfortable experience for everyone. Dementia-friendly performances and activities are also provided to support those living with dementia to experience the joy of live theatre. For our price comparison, correct at the time of recording, ice creams are provided by our cow Molly and cost £3.50 across all the Sheffield Theatres venues. Ticket prices start from £15 and vary on productions. There are a number of membership options and concession rates, as well as Live for Five, where 16 to 26-year-olds can purchase tickets for selected performances for just £5. There's a large front of house area, which includes the Crucible bar and a refreshments counter. There are 5 colour-coded entrances and exits to the auditorium. From the audience's perspective, they are ordered blue, orange, red, purple and green. Since the inaugural artistic director, Colin George, other ADs of Sheffield Theatres have included Michael Grandage, Samuel West, Daniel Evans and Robert Hasty, as well as Claire Venables and Deborah Page, who were 2 of the first women to run a theatre, and in that respect alone were pioneering for generations of women who came after them. In 2024, Elizabeth Newman was appointed Artistic Director, who was previously AD at Pitlochry Festival Theatre. And now it's time to head into the auditorium.
And welcome to the Crucible Auditorium. It has a maximum capacity of 980, and no matter where you sit, you're no more than 20 metres away from the action. Just like other thrust theatres, the Crucible has a number of unique design features. Unlike proscenium arch stages like the Lyceum, the safety curtain is technically at the back of the auditorium instead of at the front. Whilst adaptations can be made on the stage itself, the shape of it can't be because it's Grade 2 listed. And the centre point of the Crucible stage is the centre point of the entire building.
When the theatre opened in the 1970s, there were 1,000 seats, which included a single accessible seat by the entrance of the Blue Door. During the redevelopments of the theatre, 20 seats were removed to allow further wheelchair and accessible seating throughout the auditorium. There are 1,000 twinkle lights in the auditorium ceiling, corresponding to the original seat capacity. They can be individually controlled and illuminated in any colour to respond to the production on stage. The twinkle lights and seats can be sponsored, providing a perfect theatrical gift as well as supporting the work of Sheffield Theatres. Further information can be found on the theatre's website. The link is in the description below. The stage measures 10.6 metres wide and 10.75 metres deep. The Crucible doesn't have a fly tower. Instead, a grid is suspended above the stage and just below the ceiling, which allows lights to be suspended along with certain props and sets. With no fly tower and a more dynamic space, creative choices and practices are created for a production's mise en scène, from the French meaning for placing on stage. Thrust stages such as the Crucible has its own unique visual vocabulary, such as a reliance on lights and sound rather than sets and backdrops to determine scene transitions. The vomitoria, or voms of the thrust stage, are situated downstage and lead to the substage area. They can be designed to have ramps or stairs depending on the production. During shows, as the actors and backstage team are still close to the action on the stage, it's vital for there to be minimal light and sound from the substage area, as both can be protruded on stage. There's a central corridor from the backstage area to a ramped T-junction to either of the voms. You can also see the stage is elevated by props on the red steel girders. With such a large space underneath the stage, this can allow multiple and adaptable elements being added as part of the set, such as trapdoors and revolving stages. And with the substage area also being a space for quick changes, you can picture and imagine how busy it can be during a performance. Backstage, there are 14 dressing rooms, ranging from single to ensemble occupancy, with dressing rooms 10 and 11 being interconnected. The Crucible is a producing theatre, creating and producing all their own work. In-house work is rehearsed in both the Crucible and its slightly larger rehearsal room at the top floor Backstage at the Lyceum. Some of Sheffield Theatre's productions have gone on to national and global success. In the last 8 years, Everybody's Talking About Jamie, Life of Pi, and Standing at the Sky's Edge have between them gone on to London and West End transfers, national and international tours, a Broadway transfer, and have won countless awards, including at the Oliviers and the Tonys. Looking east out of the rehearsal room and Crucible Bar windows, you'll be able to see Park Hill Flats, the inspiration and location for Standing at the Sky's Edge. And from Park Hill Flats, you get a great view of the city, including the Lyceum and the Crucible. Set construction is provided by the in-house Scenic Workshop, along with external contractors considered on a show-by-show basis and capacity. The in-house costume and wardrobe departments create all the clothing you see on the Crucible stage. They have a large costume storage department with some items of clothing which have been worn by famous actors who have treaded the boards here, such as the jacket worn by Sir Kenneth Branagh in Richard III and the gown worn by Sir Derek Jacobi as Prospero in The Tempest. In order to make space for their ever-growing inventory, Sheffield Theatres provide occasional costume sales. Sheffield Theatres helps in supporting local artists. In 2019, the bank was created as a creative hub dedicated to talent development. Located adjacent to the Crucible, the space is available for local artists and theatre makers to develop work, skills and collaboration with Sheffield Theatres through residencies, open script submissions, invitations to observe rehearsals, general auditions and more. Head over to the For Artists page on the Sheffield Theatres website to find out more about talent development. For younger budding theatre makers, Sheffield Theatres' creative engagement team works with children, young people and families, local primary and secondary schools, plus local community participants and partners to open up the world of theatre to people across Sheffield. You'll find more information about this on the Get Involved page on Sheffield Theatre's website. And for the next part of this episode, we're diving into a world away from the performing arts.
Now, we can't talk about the Crucible and its site without talking about its rich sporting legacy, which actually predates the theatre by over a century, because it was on this site at the previously mentioned Adelphi Hotel where the Sheffield Rules of Football were signed on the 28th of October 1858. This was one of the first official rule books for football and had a major influence on the modern game of today. The Adelphi also has a connection in the foundation of three of Yorkshire's biggest sports teams: Yorkshire County Cricket Club, Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. Its legacy of recent times, however, came from a different sport altogether, and the reason behind it coming to the Crucible came, as ideas often do, after a visit to the theatre.
Until 1976, the World Snooker Championships never had a permanent base, with the tournament playing in various locations around the UK and the world. The idea for the tournament to have a permanent home was on the cards, but it wasn't until Carol Watterson saw a show at the Crucible and suggested to her husband, snooker player and promoter Mike Watterson, that it would be the ideal setting for the sport.
The sport had now found its spiritual home. Every year since 1977, for 17 days from late April to early May, this regional Yorkshire theatre is transformed into a global sporting arena, with a viewership of 500 million people in 150 countries. It's one of the most iconic and unique sporting venues around the world. With its close proximity, its atmosphere can't be replicated anywhere else, especially with some audience members being mere centimetres away from the action.
For the players, some will rise to the challenge, while others, even the very best at the game, crumble under the intense pressure of the theatre. And to this day of recording, the Crucible curse has struck year on year, as every first-time winner of the tournament has never retained their title the following year. For the tournament, the stage is lowered onto the red steel girders, with the VOMs blocked off for the players' seating. The playhouse turns into the practice rooms, and the rehearsal room turns into the press office.
For the nearly 50 years it's been at the Crucible, some of the sport's most iconic moments have played out on this stage, which includes in 1997 the fastest competitive maximum break in 5 minutes and 8 seconds by Ronnie O'Sullivan. Snooker's greatest moment, however, came in 1985 in a match known affectionately as the Black Ball Final, where from an 8-frame deficit, world number 11 Dennis Taylor famously beat world number 1 and defending champion Steve Davis on the final black ball in the deciding frame. Potting it was the first time Taylor was ahead in the entire match.
The script of the Black Ball Final provided a dramatic storyline as grand as the stage it was performed on. It was an important cultural moment too, as 18.5 million people, nearly a third of the UK population, tuned in to watch on TV. And as the match concluded in the early hours of the following morning, to this day it holds the record as the largest audience on BBC Two and the largest post-midnight audience for any television channel in the UK. The World Snooker Championships is the world's second longest annual sporting event, behind the Tour de France. The Crucible is to snooker what Wimbledon is to tennis, what Wembley is to football, and what Lord's is to cricket. Thanks to the medium of colour television and the Crucible Theatre, snooker was transformed from a relatively obscure sport at the time to one of worldwide recognition. And a final snooker fun fact, there's enough carpet in the upper foyer to cover 55 professional snooker tables.
Now I know, I've been talking a lot about sport on a video series about theatres, but in the case of the Crucible, it's hard not to mention the two. There'll be some who only see the Crucible as a theatre, whilst others may only see it as a sports venue. But that's not to take away the amazing work of the theatre for the majority of the year. It's also not the case of seeing the sporting world and the theatre world in competition with each other. Instead, they complement each other and show how the two can work harmoniously together. It's also not just here in Sheffield. Sports are played in theatres all over the country, and productions about sports have been performed on most stages, including here at the Crucible. Regardless of how you perceive the Crucible and its site, we can all agree that its status is nothing short of iconic.
The Crucible is a melting pot of creativity and excellence. Over the years, it's been heralded titles from the National Theatre of the North to the finest theatre in Europe. Loved by the local, national and international communities, there's no place quite like the Crucible.
Thank you for joining me on this tour of the Crucible Theatre today. If you're ever in Sheffield, make sure you come on down, see a show and support your local theatre. My huge thanks to all the team at Sheffield Theatres for showing me around today and all those who have supported in the making of this video. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe as we get to explore more theatres around the UK. And my next question to you is, which theatre should I visit next? Let me know in the comments below. I'm David Burkhart and I'll see you on the next stage.